Joining us now on the Megacast is Nick Dodge. He is the communications director at the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. Nick, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you on with us. First off, you can give us some background information on the Michigan League of Conservation Voters and kind of the efforts that you're making in both out in the community and in the political realm right here in Michigan.
Yeah, of course. So we are a leading nonpartisan political organization here in Michigan. We're dedicated to protecting our air, our land, our water, public health, and our democracy. We do that through getting people involved in the political process and making sure people know who their state representatives and state senators are, and giving them opportunities to hold them accountable. And we do that by providing them resources, opportunities to get engaged. We also get involved in elections as well. We believe in something we call a cycle of accountability, where that starts with first educating decision makers and candidates and the public about the issues impacting our air, our land, our water, and our democracy. And then we work to get elected environmental champions that will champion these issues in the legislature. And then after they're elected, we work to hold them accountable while they are in office by getting people involved and making sure that they stay true to the promises that they made on the campaign trail.
In what ways have those efforts intensified in recent years? Because we are seeing some of the evidence that we've been told about for years regarding climate change being more severe weather events, kind of some odd strings of severe weather events in places we maybe have not seen them before or not commonly seen them before, other than maybe 1 in 100 years. I think about last summer when we had a few different massive severe thunderstorm issues that led to several 1 in 100 year floods in the Detroit area. And then recently, another one of the severe thunderstorms we had, it was about 10 minutes long and caused some significant both ecological and, of course, day-to-day life issues here in the Detroit area also. So has that work intensified in recent years, given the situation we're seeing with climate change here in the U.S.?
Absolutely. I think it has entirely accelerated, and the momentum around action on climate change is stronger than it ever has been. People are seeing the impacts and they're feeling the impacts. We don't need to convince people that climate change is real or happening. They're seeing it themselves, and it's impacting their everyday lives. You referenced, 100-year storms happening seemingly every few years now. And we know that that's only going to get worse unless we take action. And so we have seen really a groundswell of support. And we're also seeing that in public opinion research as well. More people than ever believe that climate change is an issue that we must address. And I think that's because they are realizing and recognizing that the impacts are here. It's no longer tomorrow's problem. It's right here today. And that has really motivated people to take action, support candidates that have a strong stance on climate change. And we're also seeing more momentum in the legislature around policies that will address climate change by investing in clean energy, energy efficiency. And those kinds of investments are not only helpful to our planet, but they also help our economy. They create jobs. They help lower and reduce energy costs, make our energy more reliable and affordable. So there's a lot of positives that can happen through action on climate change, aside from, stopping the impacts as well.
You mentioned energy efficiency and clean energy solutions for the future that may help with some of these issues, but also help some of our communities with common issues we're having in our day-to-day life as a result of some of the more severe weather events that we're seeing much more commonly than we did in decades past and even in just years past recently. And it comes back to what we had a couple of weeks back with the severe thunderstorm in southeast Michigan. It took out power for a large sum of people under the realm of DTE Energy. And the response from DTE Energy was that, well, it was a severe weather event, it was the high winds, it was the damages to some of the tree structures, but this could have been a lot worse if we weren't trimming and cutting down trees to prevent even further outages. That brings up a couple issues. A, some of the deficiencies in our current energy systems are amounting like they haven't before, but also some of the solutions that have been proposed by some of these utilities are also those that may significantly affect our local ecology and our local environment by trimming and cutting down some of these trees. So, how does an organization like yours address those kinds of issues and work with these organizations, but also those in political leadership on a local, state, and federal level to find those solutions that help prevent some of these issues in everybody's day-to-day life, but also aren't exacerbating issues out in our environment?
Yeah. So first, I really just want to underscore the fact that Michigan is unique in our reliability and our energy costs. So these are numbers pulled from federal energy data. It gets uh, pulled together, and a group in Michigan called the Citizens Utility Board of Michigan helps compile this into a report that they produce every year. And we know from the most recent data that Michigan has the worst service in the Midwest when it comes to outages and time to restore power after an outage. And we pay the highest electricity costs in the Midwest. And this is not a new problem. This has been the case for years. And what we see from the utility companies is just not an adequate response to the continued poor service that they're providing. Meanwhile, we're also seeing energy rates continue to rise. Over the past 5 years, DTE has raised their rates 4 times, and that's totaled more than $750 million. And that's money that residential ratepayers have to continue to pay more and more on their bills every month. And so our main issue is that we keep getting our rates raised and our electricity costs keep going up, but our service continues to be abysmal. And we think that that status quo that we've been living through is not adequate and it needs to be changed. And so our position is that really this is a problem on the planning side from the very top of the organization of the utility companies. We are not complaining about the line workers and the utility workers. We know they're working hard. We know they're doing the best job they can. It's really, but they've been kind of set up to fail because at the very top, they haven't been properly investing in the grid and investing in these solutions to protect us, which is why we're in this situation we're in right now. Um, I will say there are lawmakers in the legislature that have been working to address these problems. Two of them are Representative Abraham Ayash in Detroit and Representative Yusuf Rabi in Ann Arbor. In April, they introduced legislation that would directly address and provide relief to customers when the power goes out. Their legislation would make bill credits for when the power goes out automatic, which has a huge impact because people are losing their groceries for the week. They have life-saving medical equipment that they need to continue to power. And when the lights go out and the power goes out for days on end, that causes serious challenges and concerns for them. And so their legislation would make those bill credits automatic so people don't have to go through a bunch of hoops to apply for a credit, and maybe they get it, maybe they don't. And a lot of people don't know about it. And then two, it would give customers $5 per hour in an outage after 5 hours. And then if the power outage lasts more than 3 days, it would give them $25 an hour. So this is significant money, and we believe that it's appropriate because the costs that people are enduring for when their power goes out is tremendous, and a lot of times it is impacting people in poor communities and communities of color where they're already struggling with high costs. And so I think this legislation is really important. It addresses a need that's here right now and an urgent issue. And we haven't really seen any action on that, which is disappointing. The legislature's out on a long recess, and we think that they need to come back and start passing legislation to make these issues, get resolved and put people better off here in Michigan when it comes to power outages and their energy bills.
Yeah, a large majority of the people that are under the umbrella of DTE Energy lost their power during in southeastern Michigan, at least during those thunderstorms just a couple of weeks ago. We're joined by Nick Dodge from the Michigan League of Conservation Voters on today's edition of the Megacast. And you mentioned some of these issues are primarily, or in particular, affecting communities of color and impoverished communities. You think about in the years past, the Flint water crisis, which still is yet to be fully resolved in an effective way. And then you think about similarities in the South, in Jackson, Mississippi, to that issue, seeing some of these uh, way outdated way outdated infrastructure having an impact now on these communities, especially after severe weather events that affect the entire environment around them. Which then also affects what's under the ground. So, what is being done at your organization's level and in communication with local communities, as well as leadership in government, to address some of these issues, particularly in those most vulnerable communities?
Yeah, yeah, it's a major issue, and we're seeing that low income communities are experiencing the worst when the power goes out. I will say the Michigan Public Service Commission, which is a governmental body, it's got three commissioners that are appointed by the governor. Their main task and responsibility is to regulate the utility companies in Michigan. And so each time that DTE Energy, say, has a rate increase that they want, they need to bring that before the Michigan Public Service Commission. Every time they produce, their 5-year energy plan, they need to bring that before that body and get it approved. And there's a public comment process through this all where the public is able to weigh in and provide their perspective. And we saw DTE has a current rate case that they're trying to get approval for. And so on August 22nd, after a lot of pressure was put on the Michigan Public Service Commission by a lot of frontline organizations that are working on the ground in Southeast Michigan and other places. They put pressure on the Michigan Public Service Commission to come to Detroit and hold a public field hearing on this rate case so the people who are most impacted by these rate increases can speak their mind and voice their concerns. And so they did that. That happened on August 22nd. We saw absolutely packed hearing room. It was 3 hours of back to back public comment from people in Detroit talking about the grievances that they're having when their power goes out and how their energy costs are too high. And we heard a lot of stories about how in certain neighborhoods, they're the last to get restored and they're the first to go out when the power goes out. And so there's some real disparities here when it comes to power outages and energy costs. And so what we're calling for is we're calling on the Michigan Public Service Commission, which is our backstop. They are supposed to have our interests, the public, ratepayers' interests in mind. We're calling on them to really take a close look at this rate case and reject it. It's a $388 million rate increase right now. That would be about $10 per month for residential customers. And we just think that the rate increases that they've had year after year have not resulted in better service for us. And so we really think they need to take some of that money out of shareholder profits. I mean, the utility companies continue to make windfall profits. They operate in a regulated monopoly. They don't have to compete against anyone. And so there really is no reason why our grid isn't up to par with where it should be. And so we're really calling on the Michigan Public Service Commission to hold the utilities accountable and put the Michigan ratepayers first.
Yeah, especially in those communities that are most affected by this. Of course, especially for prolonged outages, where their work depends on their home having power, where they have food that they are barely able to put on the table, or will have to choose if they have to replace it between putting food on the table or paying their bills that month. That is a tough decision to make, especially when reimbursements from these companies in these scenarios are directly from DTE, $25, which I don't think is covering anybody's grocery bills at any time. Nick, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.